even though the ancient Mayans lived in a place where it was mainly swampy, they still managed to grow crops. Their main crops were corn, beans, and squash. Corn was one of the most important crops that they grew because it was the most nutritious. Squash, squash was also really important because they ate it so many different ways. And for corn, they ate that in many different ways. Also, like they dried the kernels, and crushed them to make corn tortillas, or they just ate the corn like that. Also, beans were a major source of protein for them, and they were made in a tortilla to make one of the first burritos. There were also a lot of other fruits and vegetables that they grew or collected. The main source of meat that they had was a turkey, but they didn't really eat meat that much. The food production system that they had was one of the main sources of their economy because they would trade with it, and that's pretty much all they had was their food. The farmers were also very important because they were the people that grew the food. Each village had a little community garden, and everyone would help the garden, would help the upkeep with the garden. They also used cocoa beans to make chocolate and often referred to a chocolate drink as a drink of the gods.
On November 25th, here at Bioscience, we went to the plant bed, which is at the front of the school, and there's like these plants that are just sitting there that were really there for no purpose. So what we had done was we unplanted them, or we took them out, and we put new plants in there.
The process of taking plants out of the ground.
You want to like get it where you don't want to hit the root, because like the root is like the best part, so you want to like go around it.
Hey, it's got a root.
This plant is called the yucca plant. About 3 or 4 of these plants were removed from the area.
On December 2nd, we came back and we planted perennial plants and herbs. The perennial plants were a really great idea because they're going to be able to sustain themselves during the whole year, because that's what perennial means, to be able to last the whole year. So those are going to be great for like winter and summer because there's really going to be no issue or no concern of them dying out during these weird harsh weathers, and that's what we did. And we also made like these little like benches or whatever for the plants, and they were about like 5-6 inches deep, and then we did the holes for the plants and we planted them.
These are the plants we planted December 2nd. We planted perennial plants and herbs in between each other so that when the herbs died, there were still plants there. This is the end result of the plants that we had when we finished planting. Around them were the dome-like shape of the actual place that we planted, like I mentioned before, where the middle sinks in more, and it's higher around the edges, so that when they get watered, the water goes straight to the plants. When working in the food production system at the Bioscience Garden, there were a few problems I noticed with the system that was being put into action.
Okay, one problem that I noticed when we were working in the garden at Bioscience was the amount of water that the plants were getting watered. Like, there was multiple spouts, but they weren't watered often enough, so the plants wouldn't get enough water. And the other thing that I noticed was that it's easier for animals to get into into the little area, so they might be able to eat the plant.